All right, let's just jump straight into this explainer and completely dismantle basically everything you think you know about the physical world. We spend our entire lives blindly trusting our senses, just assuming the world is exactly as it appears. But modern physics, it tells a completely different story. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of the everyday and look at the actual hidden machinery of the universe. Seriously, look at your hands right now. Go ahead and press them together. They feel pretty solid, right? Well, what's wild is that the solid reality you're experiencing is actually just a highly controlled hallucination completely invented by your brain. Think about it. Your brain is permanently sealed inside a dark, silent vault of bone. It has zero direct access to the outside world. It's just receiving raw electrical signals and painting a user-friendly interface over a chaotic, invisible quantum reality, just so you can safely navigate the world without getting overwhelmed. To really grasp the physics of this so-called empty space, consider this. Matter is made of atoms, and an atom is roughly 99.9999999% absolute void. To put that massive number into perspective, if you were to scale up an atom so its nucleus was the size of a single marble sitting exactly on the 50-yard line of a massive football stadium, the electrons would be like tiny, invisible gnats buzzing all the way up around the highest bleachers. Everything in between? Absolutely nothing. So if we are mostly just empty space, you kind of have to ask, why on earth don't you just fall straight through the floor right now? The crucial point here is that you don't fall because of physical stuff. You're being held up by invisible forces. When you press your hand against a table, your atoms never actually touch the table's atoms. Instead, the outer layer of electrons in your hand aggressively repels the electrons in the table. Combine that with a quantum rule called the Pauli Exclusion Principle, which basically says these particles absolutely refuse to occupy the same space, and you get a massive force field. You aren't feeling matter. You are quite literally feeling electromagnetic repulsion. Act 1, the illusion of matter and energy. Now, this illusion brilliantly illustrates Einstein's famous E=mc², proving classical physics actually had it all wrong. Mass and energy, they aren't two separate things. They're literally just two sides of the exact same coin. A stationary object's mass is basically just a densely packed illusion of energy. The c² in that equation is the speed of light squared, which is a massive multiplier. It means even a tiny paperclip contains an absolute mountain of energy. And the crazy part is, this bridge works in reverse. Smash high-energy particles of light together and you can create actual physical mass out of pure energy, like creating an electron and its antimatter twin out of thin air. Let's track this everyday illusion over to the power grid, watching electricity travel from the power plant all the way down to your bedroom light switch. We're always taught that electricity flows through wires exactly like water flows through a pipe, but honestly, that's a massive misconception. Energy doesn't actually flow inside the metal wires in your walls. The wires are really just a guide track. When the electrons inside the wire drift, they create these massive, completely invisible electromagnetic fields in the empty space surrounding the wires. It's actually these invisible fields that carry the real power to your light bulb. The wire is just the train track. The electromagnetic field is the actual train. When someone gets a shock from a live wire, it's not the wire itself. It's because their body just became a brand new conductor reorganizing that invisible field to push energy right through them. Act 2, the illusion of objective reality. Okay, let's dive deeper. Does a particle actually have a definite path if absolutely nobody is looking at it? In the incredibly famous double-slit experiment, physicists asked whether a photon behaves as a definite particle, like a tiny solid bullet, or a sprawling wave of possibilities before we measure it. When they fire unobserved photons at two slits, the photons don't just pick one or the other. No, they go through both at the exact same time, overlapping and creating a striped interference pattern on the back wall, behaving 100% like a wave. But here is where things get genuinely mind-bending. If you try to outsmart the universe and place a detector right at the slits to extract what they call which-way information, basically just trying to peek at which slit it actually goes through, the overlapping wave of probability instantly collapses. The second it's observed, the photon stops acting like a wave and lands in two solid, distinct lines. The mere act of extracting information literally forces the particle into a solid, single location. This is a literal mic drop realization. It means that at the most fundamental level, our universe functions a whole lot like a computer simulation. Think about how a video game uses lazy loading, only rendering the graphics of a room the moment your character turns around to look at it to save processing power. The quantum world does exactly the same thing. The universe only renders physical matter into a definite state when an interaction or observation forces it to finally provide an answer. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, sure, but that's just light. Light's always been weird. And yeah, we used to think this spooky non-locality only applied to light, but researchers at the Australian National University recently proved that massive helium atoms act as waves too. By colliding ultra-cold atoms and measuring them, they proved that massive particles, actual stuff with weight that takes up space, also exist in multiple places at once in a state of superposition until you measure them. The line between the weird quantum world and our solid, everyday world is blurring super fast. Act 3. Harnessing quantum weirdness. So how do we bring all this bizarre science back down to Earth for practical use? Well, look at MRIs. We can safely look deep inside the human body using MRIs, which, surprisingly, don't use cameras at all. Because your body is mostly water, you are absolutely full of hydrogen protons acting like tiny quantum spinning tops. The MRI's giant magnet forces your atoms to align. Then it sends a specific radio frequency pulse, a little nudge, flipping them into a higher energy state. When the pulse turns off, they relax and release a tiny radio signal. So an MRI is basically just a giant quantum radio tuning into the magnetic spin of your own atoms. How cool is that? We're also literally building the future of computing on this exact same physics. Classical computers run on bits, acting as strict binary switches. They are strictly a 0 or a 1, no in between. But quantum computers use qubits. These exist in a fluid probability space, meaning they are in a superposition of being both 0 and 1 at the exact same time. To actually pull this off, scientists isolate individual ions inside a vacuum, literally suspending them in mid-air using electromagnetic fields. They use lasers to entangle these qubits so they share information instantly. Because they act as probability waves, a quantum algorithm can perfectly choreograph them. Through destructive interference, all the wrong answers cancel each other out, and through constructive interference, the correct answer is amplified right before the final measurement. It's a bit like dropping pebbles in a pond and precisely controlling exactly where the ripples peak. Get this, scientists have actually used these quantum computers to apply what's called a time reversal operator. In our everyday world, you drop a glass, it shatters, and it doesn't unshatter. But at the quantum scale, the laws of physics are completely time reversible. By applying a specific mathematical operation, researchers can change the phase of the qubits, effectively rewinding the quantum system to its original pre-corrupted state. They are literally undoing entropy at the subatomic level to fix computing errors, and they're doing it without breaking a single law of physics. Okay, so let's zoom all the way out, from the incredibly tiny subatomic world to the massive cosmic scale. Look at the origins of everything around us. Every single heavy element on Earth was forged in the violent deaths of stars. Elements up to iron fused right in stellar cores. But the really heavy stuff, the silver in your jewelry, the gold inside the phone you might be holding right now, the uranium we use for power, those require the extreme neutron flux of exploding supernovae, or the cataclysmic collisions of ultra-dense neutron stars. Which brings us right to Carl Sagan's iconic quote, "We are made of star stuff." And he wasn't just being poetic, it is literal physics. You are quite literally a walking, talking collection of stardust. Your atoms were forged billions of years ago in massive cosmic explosions, and right now they are bound together by invisible electromagnetic force fields actively hallucinating the physical world around you. You are navigating a highly complex holographic universe. So here's a final thought to completely mess with your head as we wrap up this explainer. If our waking reality is basically just this user-friendly interface painted over a chaotic quantum void, what else are you missing? Once you really internalize that you and literally everything around you are mostly empty space that's only rendered into solid existence by the sheer act of observation, you really have to wonder what else is hiding in the void right in front of your eyes. Thanks for joining me on this one, and keep questioning your reality.